Katherine Ashmore, and welcome to the Mindset Exchange. Ever wondered how to balance creativity, entrepreneurship, and its many demands? In today's episode, I'm joined by award-winning photographer Lynn Margolis, whose impressive body of work ranges from luxury magazine shoots to stunning high-end portraits. We're going to be diving deep into Lynn's fascinating journey as a creative artist, as well as running her own business. We explore the challenges she's faced and the invaluable lessons she's learned along the way. Topics include mastering self-doubt, being a mompreneur, finding your why, and a healthy money mindset, amongst much, much more. Let's go. Welcome and thank you for being here. How are you?
Hi, Katherine. I'm happy to be here. I'm great, thank you. I'm very good.
For those who don't know you, who are listening in, would you mind sharing a bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a professional photographer. My specialty is portrait and branding, and I have a studio in Radlett in Hertfordshire, and I love what I do. I've been in this country. I know I have an accent. I'm originally from Canada, and I've been in England for the past 25 years. And when I say that, I can't actually believe that. And people still think I'm a tourist whenever I go out, and that's fun. I like that. So 3 daughters and a British husband and British daughters. That's me in a nutshell.
Thank you for sharing all of that. You mentioned that you've been a photographer for over 20 years. Did you do anything before you got into photography?
I did graphic design for about 10 years, and I really enjoyed it, but it's a little bit isolating. You're just you and your laptop and just emails, and it's not really, my personality is more of I like to be around people and I like to talk to people. So it is very limiting. But yeah, I've been a photographer professionally for about 20 years, but I've always been with the camera in hand. And I've always loved that medium of expression. I've been doing that on a kind of fun throughout my teenage years and my 20s. And then I decided to become professional when I thought I love doing this more than I love sitting in front of my laptop and creating designs for people. So that's when I made the switch.
It can be a bit like a calling. Would you say that was the case in your situation?
It was more of a natural progression. It was a natural kind of step, the next step. It was very easy. It was obvious almost, like when somebody suggested to me, you should do this for a living. And I thought, actually, I would love to. It was like they were offering me this position. I thought, okay, I'd love to. And then I thought, okay, now I have to figure out how to become a professional photographer as well as running a business.
And so when you're thinking about the fact that you've always had a passion and love for photography, and then that transition into being a professional photographer, how did you approach that?
There was a lot of standing around going, okay, so now what? Now what? What do you do? So you have to do it really step by step. So first step is you need a better camera. And then you go with your gut. You go with your gut. What do you think you need? But I have to say that ignorance is bliss in these situations sometimes, because when you don't know what you're supposed to know as a professional, you just wing it. You just do what your gut tells you to do. And later on, when you stop relying on your gut, so you start off thinking, you start off going with your instinct about what gear you need, what your budget is. And then when you're in it and you've done it for a few years, you start thinking, okay, you follow what other people are doing in the same business, and then you lose sight of what you really want. So that's where things go a little bit. But yes, that's how I started, with my gut instinct, camera first, lenses. Now, what do I like to shoot? And I started off shoots because I had them. So it was kids and family and events and everything. And I think I went off topic with your question, didn't I?
No, not at all. It's wonderful, actually, because what I'm hearing is you're being true to yourself, being authentic to yourself and trusting your instincts. And then, if you don't mind me paraphrasing, you said it was when you went off piece, so to speak, that things started going awry. Can you talk to me a bit about that?
Yes. So when you get this is my personal experience. When you get involved in something that you love to do, it starts off with going with your gut because it leads you to the place where you want to be. Then you get to the place, you get to this destination. And then after a few years of doing the same thing over and over again, you go on courses, you meet lots of photographer friends, and then you start looking at what they're doing and you think, maybe I should be doing that. But it goes against everything that you want to go to do for yourself. And you lose that passion, you lose that excitement, and you think, but everyone else is doing this genre. It seems to be the most popular genre. So I'll give that a go. But it doesn't sit well. So you have these moments of, what am I doing? And then you start doubting everything that you've created. And you can go down this rabbit hole that is dark and very long. And until you find that light again, that brings you back to the place where you were when you first started. So it is, I'm sure I speak on behalf of many photographers when we've all done this. Changes of what we think we should be doing in order to appeal to the masses that are interested in this particular genre, because it's all trends, a lot of trends. And sometimes photographers switch genres and they think, oh, I should have been doing this from the very beginning, and it works beautifully with my personality, with what I love. But most of the time it's just a trend. It continues on for a lot of photographers. And if you're starting off when it does, and you don't really feel it, then that's when you really have to go back to your gut instinct and think, what do I love? Why am I doing this? That's what I mean by this is what happens when you go off piste.
A lot of people that I speak with, some of my clients as well, who are creative, or even solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, there can be periods of self-doubt, there can be periods of imposter syndrome. And what I'm hearing is you went back to what your why was. And that's quite important, isn't it? Finding your why and sticking to your guns. Can you talk to me a bit about the balance of being a creative against running a business and that learning curve, and what sort of mindset you found you've needed to get through that?
Okay, so I love to create. I get excited. And then there's the business side of it, which I feel like it's like a child when they love to play and then they have to do homework. And they don't want to do homework. It has to get done. So the way I balance it is I do days of play where it's just a creative day for me. Not necessarily a client. Sometimes a client comes in and I just say, oh, can I just try something like this? And then I just get really excited about that. Or I do courses that keep me on the creative, where you meet other creatives and then you bring that excitement and energy back. Because running the business side of it, if it's not a natural thing for you to do, you can put it off a lot. You put it off and you think, okay, I know I need to do X, Y, and Z in order to run the business, but I don't want to. I just want to shoot. So being around other creatives and listening to them and doing workshops and traveling around different places to meet all the other creatives and just doing fun things that a client normally wouldn't want to have done. That's how I keep that balance and keep the excitement going in the business.
Those are amazing tips for our listeners who are maybe considering this as well. But when we're thinking about what it's like, you talked openly, and thank you for sharing, you talked openly about it was quite a transition, that change from understanding, actually, yes, it's not just about the fun side and it's also a business. And how did you find that, the actual learning the business side, when naturally what a lot of people want to do when they are artists or photographers is just their craft, so to speak?
I work a lot with my gut instinct. And most of the time it works for me. But with business, the instinct is about clients and who's a good fit and pricing and packaging, because that's about me. But then the business side of it, I don't have a master's in business. So I feel like there's a part of me that always thought, who am I to run a business? I'm not qualified as a business person. So there's a lot of doubt. Working with my gut is one thing, but following business rules, if you want to use that as a way of explaining business rules, like the marketing and advertising, and that was way out of my depth, because there was ways that I thought I should do it because it felt natural. But then there are people in the business world, like actual business people, who would suggest something different that would feel unnatural. So learning to do something that is unnatural in order to run the business, that was the hardest bit. That was the hardest part for me, is to go against what I know and learn something new. And even though it didn't feel right, the way I was doing it, I was told this is how you have to do this to run the business. So that's the way I did it.
Did you find that was helpful? Did you get the results you wanted by talking to those other people?
Yes and no. I took a little bit of what they suggested, and then I just combined it. So it was like a little formula that I created with their suggestions, their advice, and along with what felt right for me and how to do it for me. But that, again, that comes with experience, and it comes with age, and it comes with confidence. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's something that it needs to be worked on, and that's a lot of personal growth involved in that, because you don't just follow somebody's advice and think, okay, it's going to work for me. It didn't work like that for me. I had to really feel it. I had to really feel that it felt right for me to do what they were recommending. And then I tweaked it to my benefit.
That sounds amazing, and also very authentic. You mentioned earlier, and I know because lovely Lynn did my photo shoot for my website, so I was aware that she has daughters. Let's talk about that for a minute, the balance of being a mum versus the balance of working. How did you find you got on with that?
That's tricky. It's tricky. They're a little bit older now, but when they were younger, it's a lot of stop-start. You start something, but you can't, I couldn't let it flow. I couldn't you find something creative, and then you think, I'm going to run with it. And just when you start running with it, it just has to stop, because child number 1 needs me for something, or child number 3, or whichever. So it is a balance, and it's not an easy balance, because all you want to do is just get to work. It can be frustrating. It was very frustrating for me in the beginning. And sometimes still today, it's very frustrating when I need to work, or I need to do something, and I'm being pulled in a different direction. But that's just the way it is in my life. There's nothing I can do about that. When they were younger, I didn't have family to rely on to help me out so I would do some work, and then school pickup. And then at the time, my daughter, all 3 of my kids were in different schools. So there's 3 different pickups. It's a lot of time wasted. Not wasted, but it was a lot of time away from running a business. So it was a slow start and a slow burn, which in hindsight actually worked well for me, because you kind of, when you let an idea sit for a long time and you bruise, and you get to think about it a little bit longer. I had actually no choice. I had no choice but to let it brew, because I couldn't just go in at about 100 miles an hour. I just had to do it at a slower pace. I could have probably done something a bit more if I did not have that, if I had more help with the kids. No regrets in that area. No regrets. It was just, I had to do it at a slower pace. Part-time. I was more part-time than full-time.
So obviously there was a lot of stopping and starting, you mentioned. There's quite a lot of change going on, being one hat mum, one hat being in business, minded running the business, and one hat being a creative artist, being a photographer. So at that time, when you think about the mindset that you needed to get through that, what did you find helped you at the time?
Shooting. That was my escape, being creative and just ignoring the business side of it, because I kept putting it on the back burner. In the beginning, I just didn't want to I just wanted to shoot and make people happy with the way with the results of the shoots of their photos. And I loved seeing people using my photos for their LinkedIn profiles, or they're blowing it up and putting them in their house. And I loved all that. And I honestly would do it for nothing. That's how much joy it brings me. but it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable when you have bills to pay and a life to live, if you want to live, and more gear to purchase. And it's expensive running a business, a photography business. There's a lot of upkeep. So you have to keep that in mind. So yeah, it was tough. It was tough. It is tough sometimes.
If you don't mind me asking, when you say tough, what do you mean by that?
It's tough because I've always prioritized being creative and shooting over the business side. It's been a challenge for me to sit down and just do business days. So that's the tough part, is the transition, that switch, when you switch your brain from to left. It's very frustrating too. It can get very frustrating, but it's got to be done. And I get through it just blocking days out and just saying, today, just working on socials or website or campaign or whichever it is. And sometimes find the excitement in that when I know that I've blocked it out mentally and I've created that understanding between me and my brain that today we're just doing this, and it works. And that's how I get through it.
Yeah. And I think that is quite a common approach in a sense of blocking out diary chunks. There's something called the Pomodoro technique, where when one has lots of different things going on, applying yourself for 20-minute chunks on one of those things, one of those goals, and getting it done, and then having a break. And then you're dedicating certain chunks in your diary to specific tasks. And then little by little, they're achieved, and you can experiment with the time, whatever works for you. So, what I was hearing is you allocate and use time management techniques with tasks that aren't necessarily the tasks that you'd always want to do, but need to be done. But let's talk about the money mindset side of things at the moment. So when one runs a business, one also has to make money. Yeah. And how did you go about that?
That's the toughest part for me. Money always made me uncomfortable. Always. Receiving it was really difficult for me. And sometimes it still is. It really is. I have a soft spot for when people say to me, "Oh, you're a bit expensive, and what can you do for me?" And I do have a soft spot because because my end goal is to make sure that people get what they want and that they're happy. I think I'm a little bit of a people pleaser. So I want to make sure they're happy. And that if that means sacrificing partial payment on my side, then I find ways to justify it. But it has been a very difficult journey for me with mindset. And it's important to talk about the money, because the more you talk about it, the more comfortable it feels. And if I use kind of different tricks, like I'll trick my brain into saying, you go into a shop and you see something that you like, and you're not going to bargain with the shopkeeper because that's just the way it is. It's an exchange. Money is an exchange. I give you something and you give me something in return. So sometimes I have to use that analogy in order for me to say to people, I'm giving you something and you're getting something in return, that give and take. And through a lot of personal growth and a lot of personal development, I've come to understand and to accept and to realize, and not in that order, but just to acknowledge that money flows. And in fact, I read about it, and I've been after speaking to people about it, and you realize that when you don't charge someone, you're stopping the flow because they're receiving, but you're not getting. And that flow is what keeps everything moving. And if you don't keep moving, you simply just get stuck. And when you're stuck, it's no good for anyone, especially not you. So that whole, it's taken me a long time to understand it, accept it, and utilize that method of give and take, understanding that money is not the enemy. Feeling bad about charging someone is not wrong. It doesn't need to be, I don't need to feel bad about it because I have the experience and they are getting something in return. But it's been a long journey. It has been a long journey. And I encourage anybody who has these hang-ups about money to honestly explore it with a professional, with a coach, with books, with self-help, video, anything. because it is so important.
It's about becoming comfortable with charging money for your services.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more than that, isn't it? It's about knowing your worth. You've got the experience, you're providing a service, and it's also your time. Sometimes it can be helpful to think about, how would I feel on the other side? I'm prepared to pay for a service, especially if I know I'm going to get an amazing quality photo shoot as an end product. And it's having that confidence, isn't it? Can you share any tips in particular that you found that have helped you get into that mindset, where, other than the experience you've gathered over the years, anything in particular that helped you to have that inner confidence to go, you know what, I'm worth this. My time and service are valuable.
Yes. Over the years, after doing so many creative shoots and so many different, I wouldn't say they weren't favors, because I always did them willingly and joyfully. But after a while, you start to think, hang on a second, I'm feeling a little bit ripped off in a way. Not ripped off in a sense, but when you know when you go to a market and people are bargaining for items, and then you feel that you got that price, and then the next person comes along and gets the same thing, like half the price of what you paid, and then you feel that ick. So that icky feeling, that hang on a second. And then it's like when you hit a wall and you stop and you think, hang on a second, I've got a studio I've got to pay for. I've got equipment, I've got software, I've got insurance, I've got everything. How am I going to pay for all this? And when you are faced with the reality of what needs to be done in order to run a business, it changes the way you speak to clients. It changes the way you approach certain shoots and any sort of offers of working outside of your studio. It just changes everything. And you start to think, I've done this for a long time. I know it can get done. I have the confidence in myself to get this done in the way that the client wants it done. So yes, I have to charge for it. It's taken a long time.
It's like a mindset shift, isn't it? It's that inner confidence about, actually, the reality is, as you were saying, you've got to pay for things, and you're providing a service. You touched on communication there. Just want to talk a bit about that, because one of the things I noticed was, when I had the photo shoot with you, was how easily you made me feel comfortable. Can you talk to me about what sort of traits you need as a photographer when you meet people that you don't know, to get the best out of them in a photo shoot?
The first thing I do is talk to them. This is before the shoot. So there's a lot of communication, as a lot of emails, a lot of on the phone chats, because the better I understand what the client wants, the better I can provide it. So on a professional level, that is really important, because at the end of the day, they'll have their photos, and they won't be, I won't be there all the time to talk to them and have a chat with them. And so the end result is their photos. But to get to that point, I have to know what they want. And communication is so important. And when I communicate, that's when I get to know their personality. And that's when I understand. I'm pretty good at reading the room. I'm pretty good at sussing out personalities, and I'm pretty good at working alongside a personality that works with, if it's similar to mine, then that's just the added bonus. Then it's just easy peasy after that. But I do have to suss out their personality, and speaking to them before the shoot is super important, and communicating what I offer against what they are looking for. That is really important, because transparency is key. It has to be, because otherwise there's going to be disappointment either on my side or their side. And it's something I want to avoid at all costs when I'm with a client and during the shoot. So yes, communication is key, being transparent, sussing out their personality. And then when they finally arrive in the studio, we've known each other for ages now, because we've been communicating and we're like good friends. So it's very chilled out. My studio it's very chilled out. I have a really laid back personality, and nothing somebody can say or do will for example, annoy me, or I'm really laid back about it. And it's their time. It's not about me. It's about them. It's what can I do you to make your experience better? And it's just, I try and make a really fun experience. And there's no time limit on it, because when people feel that there's like a time limit, you only have an hour to shoot, they get really stressed out. And I don't want that, because stress appears on photos. Being nervous, being uneasy, feeling uneasy, it shows up in a photo. The first 20 minutes as shows up on this, I discard all of those photos in the beginning, because it's a test shot. They're test shots. People get comfortable in front of the camera. That's how I do it. That's my.
Can you talk through maybe what it took to get to that, to learn those skills? Were there any particular light bulb moments you had either in yourself or you saw in your clients that helped you?
If I'm honest, without sounding, a bit, I don't know. It is my superpower. I've always been able to read the room. I've always been able to suss out if there's tension in there, if there's joy, I just jump into whatever I see. And it's really an asset in my business, because when you can read a room, especially if there's a family coming in for a shoot, if there's a mother-in-law or a mother that's not comfortable, but she disguises it as being difficult, you just need to get to the root of it and put all of your attention in that. And then it just makes for an easier experience for everybody. But I'm just myself. I don't put on a show. I match the personality of my client to the way they're feeling. I match their energy, or I lift up if they're in a low kind of mood, I lift them by just crack jokes or just talk about them. Talking about them or letting them talk about themselves is really important, because people want to feel that you are interested. And as it happens, I am always genuinely interested. I always love listening to people and their lives and their experiences. So it really helps. I'm not putting on a show. I'm not putting on an act. I genuinely love listening to people and hearing about their stories and their lives, and that's their kids. And people love talking about their family. They just love it. I love it. Why not?
Yeah, and me too. And one never gets bored of listening to different people and learning about different people in that sort of job, I imagine.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's like being a hairdresser.
Earlier, you said that you've done a lot of personal development. So we're touching in the realm of personal growth. Yeah. Resilience is often a key factor in overcoming obstacles or setbacks.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing a time when you maybe faced adversity and how your mindset played a role in bouncing back stronger?
Okay, so I had been shooting on location for most of my career. I've always wanted a studio, always, and I've never been able to find the right location, and nothing was aligning. And then I had my eye on this studio on a farm, and it was not far from my house, and we would do walks in the fields, and I got to know the owner, and she would say to me, "No, there's nothing available, there's nothing." This went on for about maybe 5 years. Every month I would send her a message, and every month she'd respond, "No, nothing yet, but I haven't forgotten about you," for about 5 years. Until one day I was walking through that field, and I saw this, reminded me of how I kept asking about the studio, and I said, "You know what? It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen." And I didn't give up, but I was a little bit sad. And then literally the next day, she messaged me and said, "Something's come up." And I just thought, actually, and I just reflected back on how I had it on my vision board for so many years, and I walked towards it, and I made sure I didn't let her forget what I wanted and who I am and what I'm interested in. And it was this perseverance, and that I came to see the studio, and obviously I fell in love with it. And I came home, and there are two things actually. So the one thing is that I loved it, and then I came home, and then I started wobbling. I thought, is this the right thing for me to do? And I started doubting myself. And my eldest daughter looked at me and she said, "Come on now. You've been waiting for this for so many years." She's, "What are you even thinking about? Just sign it. Just do it." And as soon as I had that chat with her, Because you have these moments where you think you're sure and then you start doubting yourself. That self-doubt creeps in and it shouldn't be there, but it does come in. And I signed it and I signed the lease, and this is my studio now and I love it. But the second thing is that these moments where you think you doubt yourself, and all of a sudden, once it's done, it's the right thing. It feels like the right thing to do. And it's something I've been waiting for. And then all of a sudden, all of this energy that you've been holding back because you didn't know where to put it just explodes. And then it's like starting again, because now it's your space.
Amazing.
And it's so great. And then the enthusiasm comes in again. And it's like being reborn. So once you've shifted that mindset and you get excited again, everything falls into place.
Amazing. And such a lovely studio it is as well. And that's something that a lot of people don't touch on, is it? The journey to get towards success. A lot of people see the end result where people have in their experiences, they're experts in their field and they're doing well, but they don't see the journey along the way and the resilience it takes. Yeah. And also the fact that when you do have your own business, there can be peaks and troughs. Would you mind talking a bit about that?
Yes, this overnight success can take 10 years. People working behind the scenes to create something. And then it just takes one person, one photo, one conversation, and then all of a sudden you're famous within your community. And then people think, oh, where did that person come from? I've never heard of them before. So all of a sudden they think that you're this overnight success and that they can do the same thing. But it takes so much work. Yeah. It takes so much work. And the good news is that when it comes, it doesn't feel like, you don't feel like, oh, they have no idea how long it's taken. You don't feel that. You don't feel any sort of negativity or any sort of resentment towards that. You just feel elated that it's all paid off. And there's no shortcut. There really is no shortcut. There isn't. There's not one pill that you take and all of a sudden you're the size that you wanted to be, like you were when you were 20. It's hard work. It's really hard work, and it's a lot of knockdowns, and it's a lot of picking yourself up again. And sometimes you just don't want to do it. Sometimes you really do just want to give up. And then you go back to your, why am I doing this? And then you find it again. Yeah. But there's a lot of knocks and getting back up.
I was just going to ask a bit more about that, actually. You know, you're not alone having gone through that journey. And when one has those knocks or those periods of self-doubt, you mentioned that you go back to your why, but are there any other things that you find helpful to get you back onto that positive mindset and back on track?
Faith in my ability, confidence in my ability. Sometimes when I'm feeling, why am I even doing this? Or who even needs photos? It's like you go into that part of you that is negative and it's self-loathing and it's not a good place. It's really not a good place. So sometimes to bring myself out of that place, I'll come across a photo I've taken of somebody who's using it and they're successful, or like things like the work that I've done. I go back and look at any sort of galleries that I've done, photos that I have in schools that are on their walls. And I think, actually, what's my problem? I'm pretty good at what I'm doing. And it slowly gets you back out of that moment of self-doubt. And then you just bounce back. You just have to do it. Otherwise, you don't want to give into it. You don't want to give into that dark voice. You just want to live a happy life and be happy and do what you love and just not let your negative voice get the better of you. That's really my why. I go back to why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I'm doing it because I love it. I'm doing it because it makes people happy. I'm doing it because I get to showcase my work in different places, like in schools, or I'll hold galleries of my work as part of the campaigns that I do. And people love it. I bring families together and it makes me happy. It makes me happy because it makes them happy. So it's fulfilling. That's my
and thank you for sharing that. The other thing you touched on was when you were having that moment of self-doubt, you actually spoke to your daughter. This had been something you said that you've been aiming for and dreaming about and aspiring for 5 years. And then you had that moment, that wobbly moment. And it was your daughter who actually reminded you. And it's so important. It's like having your cheerleaders close to help cheer you on, who know you, who you can trust. So if we're thinking about that side of things, the whole cheerleader side or the team working side of things, can you talk to me about the importance of who your cheerleaders are that you've had throughout your career, or who are important as part of your team in order for you to do what you do every day?
Yeah, so friends and family, biggest cheerleaders, really encouraging, really supportive. And then I have my photography community, which is also very supportive. We all have these moments in life where you doubt your ability and you doubt your worth. And you need a community. You need people to reassure you and to put you back on the right track. And it's really important to have a community of like-minded people. And you have to surround yourself with like-minded people and positive people. Otherwise, they just bring you down. Everyone's just bringing you, nobody gets anywhere. So you just need to be around those people that encourage and love your work and show you that you are just as good and deserve to have a place in this field. And it's really important.
When you were talking about that self-doubt, or sometimes people get overwhelmed, you touched on just reminding yourself about what you're good at. And you've also won awards for your photography and done photography for some magazines as well. So you touched on, you look at your previous work and remind yourself of your successes. You also talked about the importance of peer support, but with people who are in the industry and the profession who understand it. And also the people that you trust, your friends and family. Are there any other people that you can't do without in order for you to do your job?
Yes, there are like a behind the scenes support that you get it doesn't affect your everyday work, but you need them to keep your business running. There are a few people that are helpful in that way, like mentors, and where I go back to basics if I'm doubting about something or if I'm wanting to learn something. I go on workshops a lot mostly because I love to be in the company of others that are doing what I'm doing. And also because you never stop learning. We work with digital cameras and the software it changes all the time, always updating. You just have to learn and be on top of it all the time. AI is a big thing now in the industry, for everybody, really, in everybody's industry. How does that affect the business? You have to keep learning about what's going on around you. You can't ignore it. You just can't hide from the new technology. You just have to continue on and how it can serve your client base better. And just be on top of it. The more powerful you feel about your own work.
I'm going to finish off now. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you have.
It's a pleasure.
But I'd just like to ask you one final question, which is, if you could give one piece of advice for someone who was going into photography, who's just beginning their journey, what would it be?
Be patient. Be really active in the community. Find yourself a community of like-minded people. Learn constantly. Don't assume that you've just done one course and you're a professional and you can now serve a client base. Things are always changing very quickly. So stay humble. Stay humble. Oh my God, you have to stay humble because you can't let the ego kick in. Okay, so you win a few awards. That's great, but that's it. You got to move on. Keep moving with your business. Be on top of the business side of it. Don't let the business side slip. Focus on that. The shooting will always be, your creativity will always shine through. So to run a successful business, you have to keep at the business side of it. Work harder on the business side. And listen. Just listen to your clients and what they want and what they need. And develop a relationship with them. Always communicate. Discover what they want. And that's really important. Know how to read the room. Be humble.
That's amazing advice, and a lovely note to finish off today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lynn. It's been wonderful to have you and to hear all your insights as well. There's so many tips that you've talked about today that will help so many people either starting their own business or if they're a photographer as well, or going into photography. So thanks again.
Thank you.
And I'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Katherine.
Thank you for tuning into today's episode of the Mindset Exchange. Your support means the world to me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Rate, leave a review, and subscribe to the podcast to ensure you never miss an episode. If you want to continue this conversation or share your takeaways, head on over to my Instagram at Katherine Ashmore __ and comment on your favourite part. Remember, if you need support with any of the themes covered today or in previous episodes, don't hesitate to contact me. My details are in the below. Next time, I'll be exploring the power of a money mindset, how to uncover what it is, and how to cultivate yours for lasting success. I can't wait for you to tune in next week. See you then.